My parents, I actually defied them in a way. Okay,
Rebelde.
it was my classmate from Ateneo who was a mass communications major.
What? Sorry, how do you say it?
Ateneo,
Okay.
Arneo,
Ateneo,
We know it as Arneo,
Arneo.
but it's
Ateneo.
Atneo. Ha! Medyo nag-evolve pala. Go ahead, go ahead.
I know it sounds very clipped.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, go ahead.
Anyway, my classmate from Ateneo who graduated from the same on the same graduating class, but she was a mass comm major. She ended up an intern of Channel 9.
Right.
So she asked me, she dared me actually. She said, "There's an opening in Channel 9. Would you like to apply? Since you were Ateneo's public speaker, debater, stage actor for Shakespeare, I dare you to apply. There's an opening as a news anchor."
Right.
So she dared me. I was only 20 years old that time.
Oh, wow.
So I walked into Channel 9, Broadcast City in Capitol Hills, and I said I wanted to become a news anchor. They're all laughing. So I was, 20 years old,
Yeah.
young looking, very young, okay,
Yeah.
20 years old.
Totoy
Okay.
medyo.
Right, absolutely. So nevertheless, they gave me a screen test, a writing test, editing test, all sorts of tests, okay? Then I went home as if, okay, fine. The next day they called me up and they asked me, would you like to join us as a junior? We can't make an anchor so you're too young.
Right.
But we have an opening for a junior reporter. Would you like that? I said, sure. And the rest is history. I mean, that's how it started.
And back then, kasi sa pagkaintindi ko, back then, speaking straight English was kind of...
Was the norm.
Was the norm.
Was the norm,
This is my
because
parents' generation, yeah.
all newscasts back then in the Philippines were all in English except for BBC Two.
BBC 2.
Banahaw Broadcasting Corporation,
Ha!
right?
Okay! Parehas tayo nag...
You remember Banahaw Broadcasting Corporation, right?
El Bombo Radio. Like,
BBC, the big beautiful country. Remember that
Yes,
jingle?
yes,
Beautiful
yes,
jingle,
yes,
yes.
The big beautiful country, Beautiful jingle,
So
actually.
so during that time, it was a majority English language media landscape. So
Absolutely.
So
I
what
mean-
on earth happened? Were you there during the
No,
transition?
during my younger days, we used to listen to
You-
David.
you-
Yeah, and Babe
straight-
Romualdez.
Straight Jinglish.
Straight Jinglish, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
No, in
the-
fact,
it's not the Kabayan Noli de Castro English.
during my time, you could even speak to the policeman and sari-sari store
Exactly.
all in English. They would speak in halting, but they would like to speak
Yeah.
English. The taxi drivers would force themselves to speak English.
We're the same in the Cordilleras and Baguio
I'm sure.
until now, right? You can speak English to folks in whatever Cordillera province and all of that. So I suppose that was the way in much of the country. Back
No, in
then.
fact, when I was studying in Ateneo, we used to make fun. The Taglish now that's so common
Yeah.
began actually with Assumption, Sanlo. We used to make fun of them when they say "why naman." That became
The conyotic.
That
My-
became the
my
start.
people,
The
my
"why naman"
people.
thing, and we used to make fun of that all the time.
Yeah.
The Assumptionistas.
The conyotic.
The why naman.
Why naman?
That's
Now
how
na.
it started.
Now na.
Including your professor, GMA.
Huh?
Was she like that?
Oh, GMI was all English.
Yeah.
She was all- I know.
Yeah.
I know. But she was all English. She was all English.
Ikaw, Mark, do you remember? I mean, of course, both of us are old millennials, but do you remember those days it was mostly English? Do you remember how the transition happened? Because I'm from Baguio. It's a different world. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it started with media. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
So
as
it's
I
not
said-
from the people; it's from the top.
As I said,
Yeah.
I was with ABS. I was a pioneer of ABS-CBN in '86. All right, and we had good programs at the start. With World Today, World Tonight, and everything. And I was an anchor for the World Today, actually, the morning newscast with Karina Sanchez.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That's how we started. And I was Malacanang reporter for ABS Tingsayat, okay, under Cory. And then suddenly they announced we were going to launch TV Patrol. I said, what's this? What's this cross between an elephant and a mouse? I said,
Ayan na, nagsimula na. Warm up na, warm na. Let's
what's
go.
This? I said, what's this
That's it.
monstrosity?
That's it.
Hybrid.
Hybrid. Yeah.
And right away, I protested. I complained to David. What you promised us quality programming, and now you're going to have a tabloid
Yeah.
using Taglish, that doesn't sound very quality to me. I
Tapos
said.
parang patay, may
And
patay,
we
patay.
got into this huge argument, and shortly after, I resigned in protest. And
You were
short-
that emotional about it.
Yeah,
you were
and shortly
pissed off,
after
yeah.
I resigned, the entire probe team also closed shop.
Oh.
It became a snowball effect. I
Yeah.
resigned, then probe team closed shop. And
the Cheche Lazaro people? I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
they just stopped everyone one after another. Started protesting and they're leaving ABS-CBN that time.
Mga elitista. But,
No, we're not
buti nga
elitists.
umalis
I
kayo.
mean,
I'm just kidding. I'm being sarcastic.
Well, okay. I mean, you call me aristocrat, call me whatever you want. The
Elitista.
fact is, we wanted what is good for the Filipino people.
Yep.
I mean, I've always maintained that America gave us a comparative advantage over other Asian countries back then. Stop harping on the colonization, but the colonization did at least one thing good for the Philippines.
At least, yeah.
The public school system became good in the Philippines because of the Americans. They set up a very good
UP. UP is an
public
American
school
product.
system.
Yeah, exactly.
Public school system.
Yeah.
Because Americans were into public school, right?
Yeah.
That's very American, okay? And we had English as our medium of instruction. Right now, you notice
Yeah.
other countries are spending huge amounts of money to learn English.
Yeah.
When I was in China, for example, you wouldn't believe how much money they spend just to teach their citizens English. They
Right.
spend huge amount, and we didn't even have to spend anything. It was given to us on a silver platter, and we mucked it. Why?
For ratings.
Huh?
For ratings.
No.
siguro.
I argued against
That's
that.
his point, actually. He
That's
doesn't
my
believe that.
point.
Yeah.
For the longest time, as we said earlier, most of the channels were broadcasting in English. We have to set the standard, not the people. It's garbage in, garbage out. Okay? We provide the garbage, English, and the people follow. You're telling me that back in the day, people were not watching television? Of course not. They're forced.
That's my point.
It's
Yeah.
a captive audience.
no
It's
choice,
a captive
Yeah.
audience.
So they'll catch up with you. If
It's
that's
really
the
what you
standard.
show them, which
Yeah.
they will follow,
Yeah.
which they will abide by.
David,
okay?
you're not an anchor. Don't worry about you're talking to us. Just,
I know.
you're going back to your anchor days. Like, ladies and gentlemen, this is a travesty. Please go ahead. No,
That's my being a public
Yeah,
speaker
I
and
know,
debater,
I know.
You know.
Yeah.
But that was my whole point to them, and that's why we were arguing this way, because they were just saying we want to make money. I said we were making money back then.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about? I said,
Yeah.
you're just lowering the standards. I mean, I said, you know why you're doing it? I said, you want to keep people in bondage. You want to dominate people. You want to make people dumb, so that you can
Ayan na.
continue,
Ayan.
continue to rule this country. I said, you want just to be up there, and because they have no access to journals of higher learning, because they don't understand English, because you're throwing Taglish at them, you're keeping them down there and you're keeping them in bondage so you can manipulate them. I said.
Where did this come from, Dave? Can you pinpoint? I mean, we don't have to name drop, but you're more than free to name drop. Like, who had the genius idea of just dropping our whole advantage in English and say it's an
I
aristocratic
don't know,
colonial
Ronald.
language?
I can't
Is it
put
a UP thing?
I can't
Is it
put my finger on
Yun
it.
nga eh.
But-
Isn't it also the advent of technology? Because that was the time when
Not really.
when simultaneous
86, nothing yet. Nothing. There was
yes,
nothing
but
going
late
on in
80s
86.
that's the start of simultaneous communication. That's the information revolution, etc. So there's a lot of distractions now. No, it's no longer the monopoly of TV. You have other
No, but
other
I think,
platforms.
yeah, but I think, Ronald, the problem was once we got democracy back,
Yeah.
everyone just wanted to do his own thing.
Right.
Thinking that by doing your own thing, by saying whatever you want, that's democracy. When I
Right.
kept on arguing, no, what you want is anarchy, not democracy.
Right.
I said there's a huge difference between anarchy and democracy. Just because you want to say and do whatever you want, that's not democracy, that's anarchy, I said.
But
I
maybe
said,
David, that's because
democracy has a lot of
there was a
rules,
lot
I
of
said.
pent-up frustration. I mean,
It doesn't
2
matter.
decades.
Other countries have made the transition from authoritarianism to democracy,
Yeah.
and those transitions were seamless. For example, just give you an example, South Korea
Right.
had a dictatorship a lot longer than the Philippines, a lot longer. Park Chung-hee, okay, a lot longer than the Philippines. Yet when they transitioned to democracy, it was almost seamless. All right.
Because David,
Another example
they
is
had
Taiwan.
competent dictators who build strong middle class.
Park Chung-
Marcos bankrupted the Philippines. We were
I'm not
we were a
sure
dirt
about
poor
that
country
because
by the
in
time.
South Korea, I think Park Chung-hee, I'm not sure, was accused of corruption also, right?
Yeah, but their
And-
GDP per capita is very high when they transitioned.
Well,
at
here's the
1980s.
difference
Yeah.
here. Yeah, the way I see it, here's the difference. Many of these countries who engage in corruption, they skim from the top. But because the top is so high up, nobody notices it. Because all the progress is so high up there. When they skim, nothing's there. Even Singapore, if you ask me, they say it's not corrupt. No, I lived in Singapore. What they do, what the People's Democratic Party does, PDP, they skim off the top. They institutionalize corruption. They make everything's salary so big and things like that. All right.
They made
Because they control everything.
They made corruption predictable.
That's right.
Efficient corruption, I think, is a technical economics
Yeah,
term.
they institutionalized
yeah,
it.
yeah, efficient corruption. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
so,
term. Yeah,
but because they do so much, when they skim off the top, nobody even sees it.
yeah,
All right, so they're all engaged in some form of corruption. China, for example, corruption is endemic. China,
absolutely.
but because their production is so plentiful, nobody even notices
Bawi
it.
nila. So now you went out in protest. So you immediately transitioned into international media. So what was the next chapter?
I was working first for the corporate world. I became a
Mm.
corporate communications director for several companies, while at the same time doing part-time anchoring for radio.
Ah, right. So you were a DJ.
I was not a DJ, I was a news anchor for radio.
News anchor, right?
I was a news anchor for radio. Although for a brief period, I was an anchor. I was a DJ for 99.5 RT.
See, DJ. But
Very, very quick. But I was the news manager of the station as well.
Right.
But it was also Teleradio, which expanded the present language nowadays, the Taglish language.
I was
Because of
briefly.
Teleradio.
I was with the
Yeah.
original cast of Teleradio
Yeah.
under Ed Finland. He chose me as a part of the original cast because of my interviewing skills. That's why he gave me a segment to do the hard news interviewing. Yeah, I did that for a brief period together with what's his name. He just died recently. He was my friend, the son of Reka Trinidad,
Chino.
and Chino and
Chino, yeah,
and
yeah.
Gani Oro.
Yeah.
They were the original anchors for Teleradio.
But during your time, there were already call-ins. People who were calling in.
Nothing yet.
Not yet.
Nothing.
Because-
Wala pang tulfo na.
Yes, because most Teleradios now. It was also the
It's-
time when
it's
they
common,
were getting.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I see your effort, Ronald. You're
Yeah.
trying to also understand the more organic ways by which there was this transition in language and medium. So you go first. How do you end up in China? Is it circuitous? Go Hong Kong, Singapore? How does
No,
it work?
first what my first foray was very brief actually.
Yeah.
Was when I worked for the original CCTV International. That was in the early 2000s.
right.
The early 2000s.
Interesting.
You know, I was curious at that time because China was emerging. That was in the early 2000s. All right.
Right.
And I was curious. I looked at the internet. Interesting, this China.
CCTV. It sounds like the
CCTV International.
CCTV surveillance camera,
Right.
right? Yeah.
And I was
That
curious.
was the height of the
Yeah,
Chinese economy.
yeah,
then.
No, not
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is early 2000. Nothing yet. They were still on the
Still
upswing.
Jiang Zemin's
Yeah,
time.
it's
Yeah.
already double digit.
We're
Still
yeah,
very
we're
good,
growing.
yeah.
Yeah, Ron's right. You're growing at 10 to 12%.
But their
yeah.
growth was not like
Yeah.
it was later on.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So and then the headquarters was still in the military museum.
Not the
This is
elephant-shaped
the
nice
old
one.
one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is not the inverted
The one I
shorts.
went to,
yet.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
not the inverted shorts.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Inverted shirt. We called it elephant, but yeah.
Inverted shorts. Okay. No, this is the old one in military museum, the classic place of theirs. And I was just curious that time, and I became an anchor. You know, and it was fun.
You were based na in
Beijing,
Kaya
that's
to
right.
move na.
Yeah.
So it was the first time for you to work.
No, because I was the first Filipino actually. I just said one day I just emailed them. I want to work for I want. They said sure. You want do an audition here.
First
So I-
Filipino work for Chinese media because we already had Chito and
for
Jaime-
broadcast.
for broadcast,
for state media.
state
right.
media exactly.
That's right.
Yeah, you're the first.
So
Yeah.
they asked me to come over and to do to audition, and right away they said sure. They were so impressed, and oh, you're on. How soon can you come back and start with us? Great. I said, I thought for me this is an adventure.
Yeah.
I was
And
just
how
having
did your
fun.
family feel about your Komintang family feel about it? Going
Well,
back to
I think they knew that at the back of my mind I was thinking of something already.
interesting.
But it was also the time when there's beginning to be a rapprochement.
Yeah, an opening
Some.
and
Between
liberalization.
Kuomintang
But
and the
yeah,
but
yeah.
but my family somehow
Yeah.
knew that I had this ulterior motive. They knew I was always,
A
always
double
very-
agent in the making.
I was very mischievous all the time. Okay?
Yeah, rebelde talaga.
Yeah, but my family knew that. Okay, I mean.
So you
they
first
don't-
start with
They don't tell
CCTV.
me, but I know they know it.
So you first start with CCTV. This is the pre.
But I didn't stay long there. I
Yeah.
didn't stay long because I was pirated right away by TVB in Hong Kong.
so you moved down to Hong Kong.
TVB Pearl. Yeah.
Right, right.
Okay, and then after TVB Pearl, I was pirated again by Channel News Asia in Singapore.
So you first went Beijing, then Hong Kong, then Singapore, CNA, and then after CNA you went back again to China.
No. I came back to I came back to the Philippines first again.
Okay. So when is this? Late 2000s? Arroyo time?
It's about I guess it is late 2000s.
So your
yeah.
professor was the president by this time,
Then I
right?
this
Yeah,
is 2008. Then I got hit by Ondoy and I almost lost all my stuff there.
Oh shoot! Yeah.
Then I became a professor, a part-time professor at several universities.
So you did your run.
I was teaching broadcast journalism, public relations, crisis PR, and I was one of the first to start a media literacy course in the Philippines.
Interesting.
Media and news literacy.
Right.
Yeah. It was not in vogue yet, but I started it already.
But who are the students?
Lyceum, FEU. Yeah.
And how did you end up back in China again?
Because this channel called Blue Ocean Network, it was a liberal, so-called privately owned TV channel network.
Shanghai.
No, it's based in Beijing, but I heard it was based on the money of Jiang Zemin.
So Shanghai.
So these were
yeah.
more liberals, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
The more
liberals.
Deng Xiaoping type.
That's right. They were more liberal, right? So, and then my friends, foreign friends, whom I knew for a while, were all working there, and they said, "David, why don't you, come over and let's, be back together again and let's have fun. It's a good channel." So I joined. I mean, I was accepted right away again. So I did a show, but after a while, you could feel that there was a clampdown already.
So Xi Jinping time na to.
Yeah, it was already. You can feel it already. So,
Like how? Can you give us some idea?
Well,
Editorial lines are
we
changed.
couldn't just say right away. Oh, David, can you see your script? Right away. Very
Yeah.
tight again. At that time, there was this Chinese staff who was working with us, and she ended up moving to Global Times from BON. So a year after, she said, or less than a year actually, she asked me, "David, we have an opening here at Global Times for a news editor, and I recommended you. You're very good. It's like we work together at BON. I said, I like, and I told him about you. So I applied to Global Times. I said, okay, sure, you're in.
Just to remind our audience, what is the Global Times and what
Yes.
does the building look like? Just give us a feel of the place.
Global Times is the tabloid nationalist newspaper of the People's Daily.
So Fox is on steroids. Pravda, like something like
The joke
Well-
is it's basically Fox on steroids.
Yes.
okay?
or Pravda. No.
It's practically the news outlet of the Communist Party of China.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And all of them, by
Yeah.
the way, are all propaganda. They call it newspapers, even
Yes.
CGTN, they call it the news TV. No. It's all propaganda.
Right.
All right?
You mean
So
state interest being reflected as news?
it's all
essentially.
propaganda
Yeah.
because as a news editor, I'll tell you the truth. If I would edit the first draft, when the second draft comes to me, the facts are all different. Much of it is.
There's a
How
new
did this
fact.
happen?
It's like,
How did
the
this
facts
happen?
change.
Like,
Medyo iba yung tawag natin dyan. Hindi na
it's
propaganda.
magic. It is magical.
Magic, yeah. Medyo literary pala, magical realism.
Right. And I would hope that would happen every day.
OMG.
Every day,
OMG.
What were the big issues na
Exactly.
nakaharap nyo nung...
And you
Well,
last
of course, the U.S. Of course, U.S. They're attacking the U.S., attacking the NATO. The usual thing. If America does something that China doesn't like, they'll hit America again.
What were the big things
And
during this
the
time?
thing about
Yeah.
China is they will cherry pick certain events in history where America fumbled and they
Yeah.
would harp on it.
Afghanistan,
Or
Iraq,
Japan, always
Oh,
Nanjing massacre. Always,
yeah.
it's always Nanjing massacre. Look at the it's always Nanjing massacre, and it's really coming out of my ears already. Why do you guys keep on harping on that? Life has moved on since the Nanjing massacre. I'm thinking,
But
so-
during that time, they were also critical of Russia.
Well, you see, China and Russia have this.
Love-hate relationship.
That's right.
Dynamic. Yeah.
Because
Parang kami ni Ronald. Medyo dynamics. Medyo patama, tapos kaibigan, tapos
yeah,
patama.
because it is. They have a history of a love-hate relationship.
Yeah.
That's China and Russia. Okay, but China, as I've said, many times, and what I've learned by staying there and by dealing with the communist cadres on a daily basis, is that China primarily is it. I mean, at least the Communist Party is just two things. What they value the most. One is material wealth. Second is, or equally, is saving face. Everything else is secondary.
Yeah.
That's it. That's China.
Material wealth for the
For the country, for them,
For them.
because
Economic growth,
for
essentially.
them,
yeah.
that's